71% of real estate agents in Toronto are part-time realtors. That's about 34,000 realtors. Now, what is the income like? What is the effort like? And what are the challenges that they face? All of that in this video. Okay, first off, I want to start off by defining what exactly is a part-time agent because the statistics can be slightly misleading. So I have it right here. Essentially what it says is that you are classified as a part-time realtor if you close 1 to 5 deals in a year. That classifies you as a part-time realtor in Ontario. Now, if you close 6 or more deals, that means you are now a full-time agent. In other words, meaning it's just based on the number of deals that you close. They don't actually have a real number for how many people are actually working part-time versus full-time. How many people are fully committed to this versus those that have a side job. So you might see a lot of full-time agents do 1 or 2 deals in a year. And so they get factored into this part-time agent calculation, where you also might see a lot of agents get 6 or 7 or 8 deals done where they're still working another job. So it is slightly misleading, but it does give us more insight into how many deals are people actually completing. And so as I said, we can even go farther into the statistics and look at the numbers. Okay, so in 2023, we had about 71.2% of agents that were part-time realtors. Now, on the flip side, we had about 18.6% that did 0 deals in the year. And so they're not even classified as part-time realtors, nor as full-time. They're kind of classified as unemployed or whatnot, or not even a real estate agent. So kind of inactive is what we would call them. Now, 10% of the agents are full-time. So only 10% of all realtors in Ontario are full-time, which means they did about 6 or more deals in a year. And so if you look at the numbers, really, we have, what's interesting is we have about 6,000 agents that literally do 0 deals in the year, right? And if you remember, I said we had about 34,000 agents that are part-time, so doing 1 to 5 deals in the year. And so only 10% are actually doing those 6+ deals a year, meaning if you think about the income that you want to make, and if we can extrapolate this out a little bit, we can imagine most realtors will make somewhere from 15 to 30K on a deal, right? Which is not bad. So if you're doing, let's say 5 deals in a year, right? Which is just upper limit of part-time, you're going to be making a decent amount of income, which will be generally fairly sufficient. That's actually not too bad at all. But again, within that 1 to 5, I can imagine the pyramid kind of goes something like this. So we're going to have a lot more agents that are doing 1 deal versus 2 deals, and then 3 deals, 4 deals, 5 deals. Meaning even within the people that are part-time agents, that's 71%, that 34,000, you're going to have a much bigger number of people that are only doing 1 or 2 deals, with a much smaller number being the 4 or 5. So the way I want you to think about it is like this triangle. If we have 18% already that do 0 deals, right? And we have 71% that are doing 1 to 5. In that 71, we're gonna have probably people that are doing 1 to 2 deals is probably slightly smaller than 18, and then it goes smaller and smaller and smaller. And then we get all the way to 6+ deals, which is 10%. So it starts off at 18 with 0 deals, 18% of those agents, and goes smaller, 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 into 10%, which do 6 or more deals in a year. Hopefully that makes sense. But this is just to kind of break down the numbers and the income of what you'd actually be looking like. Okay, now let's talk about effort. So part-time agents can work the same or more hours than full-time agents, right? Based on our definitions, there's no actually difference in terms of the effort. Now, I can tell you based on anecdotal experience, part-time agents typically work less. That's just normally how it goes. However, I've seen a great deal of full-time agents who work 20 hours a week, and a great deal of part-time agents that work 25+. So it is not necessarily the case that part-time agents always work less. It just makes it harder for them to work more because they have another job or they have other things they're doing, right? Where full-time agents are fully committed to this. So often what I see is that it does take a lot more effort to be a part-time agent, simply because often you are only going to be available in evenings and on the weekend. And I actually did an interview with Charu. Charu was one of my students, and she became a realtor. You guys can check out that interview over here. But basically, Charu mentioned that she does not believe that part-time agents can even be successful in the industry. And that is really, really interesting coming from her, who's already been in the industry for about 1 to 2 years. So keep in mind, we're working evenings and weekends, which is a grind. And you're gonna have clients that are gonna expect you to be available all week round. So they're gonna want you to be available in afternoons and mornings. They're gonna ask you, hey, why aren't you available right now? So it does put you in a slight disadvantage, not only because of availability, but because it takes a lot more effort. And you'll find a lot of people get into the industry, they get their license, and I've had this as well, even from students I've tutored, who get their license, They get into the industry and then they realize they just don't have the time, or they're not willing to put in that effort because they don't want to quit their job. But at the same time, it's a lot of work to come home from an 8-hour day and then get into real estate. So this is a decision that you want to make early on before you even get into your journey, ideally, or that you simply say, hey, I'm willing to commit and make it work. And then it's going to be up to you to kind of make that thing happen. Either you quit your job and go full time, or you make them work together. So in total, you can expect something like 10 to 30 hours of work in the week as a part-time agent. And I also want to reiterate that for full-time agents, we do often see them doing less or about the same amount of hours as full part-time agents, simply because one, you're your own boss, which makes it harder to be accountable for. And often I've seen full-time agents let their fear and procrastination kind of inhibit them. But the second reason is Parkinson's law. Now, Parkinson's law is the law that states that the work you have will expand to fill the amount of time you have for its completion. In other words, meaning if I have 2 hours to call 2 leads, it's likely that you will take those 2 hours to call those 2 leads. And you'd be surprised. You say, Shiva, hey, it's just a 5-minute call. You'd be surprised. The fear inhibits people, procrastination inhibits people. They'll spend a lot of time doing pre-research, then they'll take notes after, and they'll take a lot of time simply to make those 2 calls. Versus if you had 10 minutes to do those 2 calls, Parkinson's law also comes into play, and you'll often find a way to get those things done in that amount of time. So remember, this applies to everything we do as humans. It's just kind of one of those things in biology, and it's one of the hacks that you can use to get more things done in a shorter amount of time, which is why you might even know people who you're like, hey, you're so busy. How are you getting all of these things done in such a short period of time? And Parkinson's law. Okay, number 3 are the challenges. So what exactly are the challenges we're going to face as a part-time realtor? Well, we're looking at limited time, like I said. It's harder to build momentum because you are working less, you're not able to be as available for your clients, and typically you're just going to have less clients. So it's not that you can't make a great amount of money, it just means that it will take longer to build that clientele and to actually kind of build that income that you want. Depending on how much you want, it just might not even be viable at a part-time kind of effort standpoint. So the biggest question kind of comes to this: should you become a part-time realtor? And so what I will say is this: if you do want to become a real estate agent, decide now what works best for you so you're not inhibiting yourself later or doubting yourself later or feeling guilty later about the decision you're making. Both can work, both can make money, and both can not make you money as well. Okay, you wouldn't believe the amount of full-time agents that don't make any money. Right? We already saw the numbers, 18%. So good criteria to kind of look at yourself by is if you need income immediately and you do not have that amount of time or energy to give to this part-time real estate job, like evenings and weekends, then keep your job and do it part-time. Simple. If you feel like you don't need that income immediately, like you have some of the skills that would make you a good realtor already, networking, lead building, etc., you have some experience in there, and you kind of want to quit your job, then this is a great time to go full-time. Obviously, you're going to know the answer that is best for you, and hopefully this video has helped with some of those things. If you do want to get a little bit more insight into perhaps real estate brokerages to join, you can check out this video over here, and of course, all the rest of the videos on my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.